All right, let's talk about the USC Trojans. Obviously, the season didn't go the way anyone had hoped for, but one of the interesting things that's happened already this offseason is USC is making huge move after huge move to get this roster better for the future. Lincoln Riley is quietly doing a really nice job so far over the past days and weeks, and we've got another great report on the recruiting trail for USC. I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, this USC program trying to bounce back from a disappointing 2024. They're reloading with the talent base, not just for the upcoming season, but for the out years as well. Lincoln Riley quietly doing a good job, finally building a talent-rich program. We've got a great recruiting report. Let's pull this up. This is courtesy of 24/7 Sports. USC has another cornerstone piece in its 2026 class. Again, we're looking into the out years now. Elite cornerback R.J. Sermons has revealed his commitment to the childhood favorite Trojans. Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, and Washington, those pretty good names right there, were the other four finalists for Sermons, but it was hometown USC that managed to get the talented defensive back from Rancho Cucamonga to shut down his process ahead of the new year. Sermons is the nation's 51 overall prospect in the 2026 class, number 4 among corners, and number 7 in the state of California per 24/7 Sports rankings. All right, so long story short here, Sermons is one heck of a football player, a massive big time recruit, and USC was able to secure his commitment very early in the process. That's a credit, I think, to Riley, his coaching staff, getting the job done. More momentum in LA right now behind this Trojan squad. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this, but first, USC fans in the comment section below, as we're working our way through the offseason right now, really bowl season, but right now it's all about recruiting and transfer portal working, things like that. What's one position group you think USC has to upgrade the most over any position this offseason? Forget quarterback, right? That's kind of the obvious one, but give us one. You got the insights. You're the fans. You obviously know this team very, very well. Give us the one position group you want to see the USC Trojans upgrade this offseason through recruiting and transfer portal. Let us know in the comment section below. But Mize, give us your thoughts on this latest move and just all things USC right now.
Yeah, and I think when you say obviously quarterback, that's, we throw that aside as far as where we need to upgrade this team because I think everyone has trust. Lincoln Riley is going to figure the offense out. He's been doing it for a really long time. He's just got to find the next guy. Is that Hassan Longstreet, the 5-star quarterback coming in? Probably, or at least he's going to be able to get some good work out of him, I think. So I think the offensive side of the ball is really important here, and they're going to get that figured out. Now, what do we have left? We have the defensive side of the ball, and that's where guys like RJ Sermon come in. And that is what USC has been doing the last two classes. I say last two, talking about this most recent 2025 class is not even here yet. In this 2026 class, there's been a huge focus on the defensive side of the ball, while there's been a huge focus on the defense going from this year. I'd say the defense has taken a massive leap for the Trojans. And then for years to come, I think we're going to see it because of the focus on the defensive side of the ball. You look at this 2025 class first. This is a class that has 4 D linemen and 5 DBs in its recruits and a linebacker as well. I think they're really taking a big time, just concerted approach through recruiting to say, hey, we need to go ahead and get a lot of high caliber defensive players around the ball, make our coaches' jobs as easy as possible. Because then you jump over to the 2026 class. It's a class already, not too huge, only 7 commits, but out of those commits, 6 of them are defensive players out of the 7. So really great, stuff going on here for Southern Cal. I think it's a really great approach. Obviously, dominating the state of California. You look at this 2026 class, out of those 7, 5 of those guys are out of the state of California. So I think they've gotten back to basics. They recruit their state first. They recruit locally. They know what their problem is. Defensive side of the ball is something they really need to work on. They've started working on it, and I think we've seen an improvement. And now they're just loading up on players. Let's keep the talent pool coming. Let's keep that pipeline of strong defensive players running through this program. I think it's going to have some pretty big results. We saw a little bit of what could happen this season. I think that, we saw good games. We saw the defense help them out at times. It wasn't always the offense having to bail them out. So this just seems, I think Lincoln Riley and this staff are finally figuring it out. They're doing a lot of really smart things. We'll have to see if it pays off. But at least for now, it looks like they have a very clear concise plan on how to get this a top tier defense.
So one of the beliefs I have in just football at any level is that consistency is correlated with talent, right? Obviously, having one good game next week and then or one good game this week and then a bad game next week in terms of a position group or a side of the football, to me, that's a lot of coaching. That's game plan, that's preparations, that's matchups, right? If you have a great defensive game, that's a one week, hey, that was probably a great game plan. But if you have a step drop off the next week, that's probably just a function of, you just played a bad matchup and your coaching and strategy couldn't overcome it. Consistency comes with talent, right? That's when week in and week out, you can play the same style of team, same style of strategy, or different style of team and change up your strategies, all that kind of stuff, and still perform at a high level. That's when you have talent and depth. Consistency equals talent. Consistency and talent correlated together. And I think on the defensive side of the ball, that's the real question for the USC Trojans. If you look back at their 2024 season, their losses, they surrendered in their losses, they surrendered 27, 24, 33, 29, 26, 49. That's averaging about 30-ish points per game in their defeats, right? I know we think of USC Lincoln Riley high flying offense, but the reality is if you look at USC's, especially the glory days, Pete Carroll, it was always a good defensive team, holding teams generally under 20 points, sometimes even less than that, certainly keeping them in the low-ish 20s if they break that 20-point barrier most games. Obviously, USC didn't do that last year, but like you said, there were moments when they played at a very high level defensively, or at least good enough. Consistency needs to come to the defense, and I think getting more talent, like you said, USC focusing very heavily recruiting that top flight talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think that will solve their consistency issue. And if they fix that, like you said, Lincoln Riley's got this offense in a good spot in terms of his strategy, his schemes. We'll figure out how all these new pieces play in the future, but getting that consistency solved with bringing in the right talent, I think is a huge step for them. And one final point here to end on, one of the things I think is very interesting this time of the year, bowl season, teams that didn't have a great season, obviously USC finishing 6-6. I always look for teams like that are then doing great things in the recruiting game. Because to me, that's an indicator that the recruiting staff, the head coach, they can still get the job done without a great record to back them up, right? It's a little easier to recruit if you're 12-0, 13-0, whatever, like Oregon, for example, and you're going into a national championship college football playoff scenario, number one team in the country. It's a little easier to recruit and easier to sell. Hey, you want to come here and not lose a game? It's harder to recruit, right? When you finish 500, you're 6-6. You may finish with a losing record depending how the bowl game shakes out. It's a lot harder to recruit, and despite that challenge, USC is doing a great job. I think that's an indicator that they're ready to take a big step forward. We talked about this a few years ago with the Miami Hurricanes. They were middling around 500, but they were crushing in the recruiting game. We said, listen, this is a team. They're going to be a double-digit win team very, very quickly. And lo and behold, that's what Miami did this past season. They are on the upswing. I think USC is following that same trend, and I think the future is very bright in Southern Cal because of it.